So, with a firearm, you have two actions that occur while you are pulling the trigger. Now, under this grip, there is significantly more than just that going on, and we will get into that at a later date. And I will pull up some schematics and stuff just to give you a general idea of just how many parts are actually in here and functioning and making the gun work as it should. So the first action is the hammer being cocked back, which we can do ourselves, or alternatively, we can also begin to pull the trigger. Bam. So it fired. So that was a double action only shot. If you see, you pull, 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 and you'll hear a slight click. Yeah, here yeah, it's very slight, but you can feel, may not be able to hear, but you can feel a slight click once that first action has kind of passed. It sounds almost like a half cock. It sounds very similar to this, if you can hear this. Something like that. But anyways, so you've got your single action shots, which will give you an extremely light trigger, and many early on revolvers, and some revolvers to this day are single action only, meaning every time you intend to pull the trigger and either harm someone or put down a target or something like that, whenever you intend to put a hole in something, you have to cock back the trigger first, and then the firearm is able to be fired. And if you notice here, there is an extremely light trigger pull here. You can see how far back that trigger already is. It doesn't even really have room to go back. So I'm going to do my best. You have a very short trigger pull that is also incredibly light. Typically this is going to be 2 pounds or less. It's a very light pull. I have a little carabiner right here that I'm going to wrap around just so you can get a general idea of how light this is. So I'm just barely starting to apply pressure, just barely. It goes off. Now, when you're doing that with your own two hands, it will greatly surprise you. If you have no experience with any sort of single action firearms, it is an amazing surprise at just how light that trigger is. Bam. If those weren't snap caps, I probably would have just killed my roommate. But again, as we know, these are snap caps. We're fine. We double, quadruple checked and did all of our due diligence. I just dropped one. Give me just a second here. So that's kind of the basics of double action. One thing to note is, let's do a little quick safety check to make sure we still are using our snap caps, which we are. One thing that people often overlook with double action, and I'm going to bring out another example as well to show you, is the trigger pull. Typically on a double action firearm, mainly a wheel gun like a revolver, it's about a 12-pound trigger pull if you don't cock the hammer back first like that. If you want to just shoot, say, now I just went through 10 rounds, so obviously the revolver wouldn't even be capable of doing that. I'd have to reload in between, but you get my point. Each time I was pulling that trigger, it is about a 12-pound pull. It takes a lot of energy due to all of the moving parts, mechanisms, springs, and different points of tension within the firearm right here behind this plate and over here in the grip. You're looking at about I'd say an average of at least 43 parts per wheel gun, if not more. And I personally have taken this revolver apart, and I can flash you the schematics on the screen. It is not a fun one. And these Colts, man, they seriously are not meant to be taken apart. They are meant for shooting and basic, like, bore snake cleaning type thing. But once you take off that grip and you try to really get in there and clean, you are going to have the time of your life. Anyway. Okay, so right here I have a Rossi Plinker 22. As always with any firearm, we're going to start off first with our safety check. And as you can see, there were rounds in that gun, so it could have killed someone if we pulled the trigger. And one round actually didn't fully eject. That's something that's just, it's totally dependent on rimmed cartridges, but I've noticed a lot of the time with Colts, they always just fall right out if it's an unfired round. Or it could just be that this gun needs a little bit of clean and a little bit of love, because I have shot quite a few rounds of 22 through it as of recently. We'll double check right here, make sure it is completely empty. I will even show you guys the cylinder as well. Fully empty. All you can see is my t-shirt through. I do have some brass here that we are going to utilize as snap caps, but this is just 22 long rifle brass with no projectile. It was actually either fired through this firearm or my my Remington single shot 22 bolt action. Alrighty, so now I've got all of those rounds of 22 brass loaded into the cylinder. So now this firearm is completely safe for us to shoot through regardless. They will function as snap caps up until I get some legit 22 snap caps, if they even make that shit, because let's be honest, not many people are practicing with a 22. But for the sake of double action and single action, this firearm is also a DASA, which is the abbreviation for double action, single action. And like my Colt, it also has a shrouded ejector rod, so it makes it look nice and sexy. And it looks like they tried to do some copying of the Python up here or something, I'm not sure. Rossi is a sub-brand of Taurus, and if you happen to have this firearm or the Taurus Judge, the grips are actually interchangeable between the two. So if you bought a Packmeyer grip for your Judge and you happen to have one of these laying around, throw one of those Packmeyers on this bitch too. It'll make it way better for shooting. Shoots fine with the normal grip, but it is what it is. So here, I don't have a trigger pull gauge for you, sadly. I only know the numbers on the Colt because I looked them up. But on a Rossi Plinker 22, as I pull here, let's see. We're past our first action. Bam, that was our second action. So for me, it felt like very similar to my 357 Magnum, which is astonishing because it is a 22 and it needs significantly less power in order to push that projectile through. So I would say, you know, just in terms of bro science, this is going to be a good probably 8 to 12 pound trigger pull. It's still going to be a lot heavier than any sort of freaking, let's see here, like any sort of polymer framed handgun like this, like a Glock clone. This is a Taurus G2C. Nothing in the chamber, nothing in the magwell. It's safe. These things have like just some of the best fucking triggers ever in the world. But when we're talking wheel guns and we're talking revolvers, you've got your double action and you've got your single action. Now again, some revolvers may come single action only. And they do specify that when you're buying it, just so you know what you're getting yourself into. Because that's more of a niche category and something that cowboy wannabes prefer to use, but they're still great guns regardless. I'm not hating on any single action only users. But so if we cock this hammer back here, this puts us in single action mode as if it were a single action gun, because it does both. And then again, as you can see, just like on the Colt, it gives you barely any room for space to pull that trigger. And then it's just the lightest, just... But yeah, those are the basics between double action and single action. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I do hope you enjoyed seeing these beautiful firearms. And I look forward to you possibly liking, subscribing, and watching further content on the channel. Let's learn together.